In the peaceful archipelago of New Zealand, there was a volcanic island known as Whakaari, or White Island, as it is commonly called. Located about 50 kilometers off the coast of the North Island, this deserted island was famous for its stunning landscapes and constant geothermal activity. Despite being an active volcano, Whakaari attracted visitors from all over the world who were eager to explore its crater and experience nature up close. Many tour operators offered guided tours to the island, promising adventure and direct contact with natural phenomena. The island belonged to a private family but was under environmental protection, monitored by local geological institutes. The volcano had been on moderate alert in the days leading up to the tragedy, yet authorities still allowed regular visits. Tourists arrived at the island by boat or chartered vessels, mainly coming from the city of Whakaari on the northern coast of New Zealand. It was common to see guides explaining the volcano's history, while visitors photographed fumaroles and colorful lakes formed by underground activity. Few imagined that this paradise-like scenery hid unpredictable and silent dangers. On December 9, 2019, the tourists' quiet routine was brutally interrupted by an uncontrollable force of nature. That day, the volcano erupted without warning, sending a column of ash, toxic gases, and debris kilometers into the sky. The sound of the explosion echoed across the region, scaring those nearby and generating shock waves that spread across the sea. Images captured by witnesses showed a dense cloud covering the blue sky, while screams and panic took over the nearby boats. Nearly 50 people were on or very close to the island at the exact moment of the eruption, including both New Zealand and foreign tourists. No one expected that would be the last time some of them stepped on solid ground. At 2:11 p.m. local time, the Whakaari volcano exploded violently, catching everyone by surprise. The event was classified as a phreatic eruption, caused by the sudden heating of underground water in contact with magma. This type of eruption is especially dangerous because it can occur without clear signs of warning. Scientists had already noticed increased seismic activity and gas emissions, but did not predict the scale of the event. The volcano ejected a deadly mixture of superheated steam, glowing rocks, and volcanic ash at high speed. Temperatures within the volcanic cloud exceeded 300 degrees Celsius, enough to cause severe damage within seconds. Many tourists were positioned inside the main crater, where the explosion had the greatest impact. Tour guides tried to keep calm, but the situation was chaotic, with reduced visibility and injured people scattered throughout the area. Some managed to escape quickly with the help of rescue boats, while others remained trapped on the island for endless minutes. Among those present were groups of tourists from Australia, the United States, the United Kingdom, China, India, and Malaysia. A tour organized by an international cruise ship was anchored near the island, with more than 30 passengers on land. The crew watched in horror as the explosion occurred and immediately began improvised rescue operations. The New Zealand Navy and emergency helicopters were quickly mobilized, but access to the island was extremely dangerous. The initial priority was to evacuate the injured, many of whom suffered serious burns and gas poisoning. Although first aid was quick, many victims did not survive their injuries. After the eruption, the top priority for New Zealand authorities was rescuing survivors and identifying the missing. Security forces and medical teams were mobilized at record speed, facing adverse conditions to reach the island. However, entry to Whakaari was temporarily suspended due to the risk of further explosions and soil instability. Meanwhile, the injured were urgently transported to hospitals in Whakaari, Rotorua, and Auckland. Many of the accident victims suffered second- and third-degree burns, as well as lung injuries caused by hot gases. Medical teams worked tirelessly, but unfortunately, the number of deaths continued to rise hour after hour. Among the survivors, many lost friends or family members in the tragedy and had to deal with deep physical and emotional trauma. Local authorities declared a state of emergency and kept the area isolated for days, waiting for the volcano to stabilize. Rescue teams entered the island only 2 days later, supported by drones and thermal detection equipment. The bodies found were carefully removed and sent for identification in specialized laboratories. The identification process was complex, given the severity of the injuries and the degradation of the bodies. Families from around the world waited for news, often with little comfort or concrete information. The New Zealand government set up a psychological support center for relatives and survivors, offering multidisciplinary assistance. In the following week, international media closely followed the unfolding events. The Whakaari volcano tragedy became one of the largest recent natural disasters recorded in the country. The final death toll reached 22 confirmed fatalities, including 19 tourists and 3 local guides. Of the deceased, 11 were Australians, 5 Americans, 2 Britons, 1 Chinese citizen, and 1 Malaysian. Another 25 people suffered serious injuries, including extensive burns and respiratory complications. One of the youngest victims was just 17 years old, while others had decades of international travel experience. Among the survivors, some spent weeks hospitalized in burn units, undergoing surgeries and intensive treatments. Heartbreaking accounts emerged from people who narrowly escaped death but would carry scars for the rest of their lives. An Australian mother described how she managed to save her son by grabbing him and jumping into the sea, fleeing the rain of ash. Another tourist filmed part of the eruption before running desperately toward the boat, in a video that went viral worldwide. The human drama touched hearts around the globe, with messages of solidarity arriving from all continents. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, referenced the incident during a press conference, highlighting the loss of American citizens. Governments from various countries expressed condolences to the families of the victims and offered logistical and diplomatic support. The international community turned its eyes to New Zealand, questioning safety protocols in volcanic tourist areas. The case also sparked debates about the responsibility of tour operators and the need for better volcanic predictions. For many, the tragedy served as a cruel reminder of how unpredictable and devastating nature can be. And even with modern technologies, science still has limits when it comes to predicting volcanic events. Although the eruption seemed sudden, there was evidence that Whakaari had been showing signs of instability before the disaster. In the months prior, geological records showed increased seismic activity and volcanic gas emissions. The volcano's alert level was raised to 2 on November 18th, indicating significant volcanic activity. Even so, local authorities considered it safe to conduct guided tours, provided there was adequate supervision. Later studies revealed that the volcano's hydrothermal system was under increasing pressure, which could have led to the phreatic eruption. Scientists stated that this type of explosion is extremely difficult to predict accurately, even with technological advances. The lack of specific instruments installed directly on the island made precise monitoring of internal changes more difficult. In addition, there were no functioning seismographic stations on the island itself, only at distant coastal points. Critics argued that the absence of an efficient evacuation plan contributed to the high number of casualties. Tourist operators defended their actions, stating they strictly followed technical recommendations and official warnings. However, the fact that they allowed visits to an active volcano, even with an elevated alert, generated controversy. After all, volcanic tourism is a global practice, present in countries such as Italy, Iceland, Japan, and the Philippines. But risks are not always clearly communicated or understood by the visitors themselves. The Whakaari tragedy served as a turning point in how these practices are evaluated and regulated. The eruption of Whakaari also had significant environmental consequences. The column of volcanic ash reached high altitudes and spread for kilometers, affecting local weather patterns. Fine ash particles fell on nearby cities like Whakatan, Tauranga, and even Napier, compromising air quality. Native vegetation on the island was severely affected, with entire areas destroyed by lava and the explosion. The resident fauna, consisting of seabirds and small reptiles, suffered significant losses. The marine ecosystem around the island was also impacted, with changes in water temperature and possible chemical contamination. Scientific studies conducted afterward detected increased levels of heavy metals and acidic compounds in the water near the island. The volcanic activity altered the landscape of the main crater, creating new geological formations and drainage channels. Researchers took the opportunity to study the effects of a phreatic eruption in real time, collecting valuable data. These findings will help better understand how to predict and respond to similar eruptions in the future. The island remains under constant monitoring, with additional sensors installed to avoid surprises like the one in 2019. The volcano, although currently dormant, continues to emit small amounts of vapor and gases, reminding us that its power still lies beneath the surface. Authorities decided to permanently ban tourist visits to the island as a preventive measure. The decision was criticized by some economic sectors but widely supported by experts in safety and environmental protection. After all, the priority now is to protect lives, not repeat past mistakes. The police of New Zealand, along with environmental and occupational health agencies, began independent investigations into the circumstances that led to the disaster. One of the main lines of investigation focused on the responsibility of companies organizing tours to the island. Questions were raised about whether the operators followed adequate safety protocols and properly informed tourists about the risks involved. The conduct of government authorities was also examined, particularly regarding the monitoring of the volcano. GeoNet, the institution responsible for geological monitoring in the country, admitted that early signs of the eruption had been interpreted but underestimated. It became clear that there had not been clear and urgent communication about the imminent risks. The tourism companies involved defended their actions, stating they operated within legal standards and based on available information. However, critics argued that allowing visits to a volcano under elevated alert levels was irresponsible. In 2020, the Ministry of Justice in New Zealand filed criminal charges against 2 tour companies and 3 individuals. Accusations of serious negligence and reckless exposure of people to life-threatening risks were formalized. The trial, concluded in 2022, resulted in heavy fines and convictions for violating safety regulations. The court decisions set an important precedent in the relationship between tourism and safety in risk zones. Now, any tourist activity in volcanic areas must undergo more rigorous and ongoing analysis. The Whakaari case left a legacy of change in public policies and awareness about natural hazards. For the survivors, life was never the same after the eruption of Whakaari. Many needed prolonged treatment, plastic surgeries, and intensive physical therapy. Some lost limbs, others suffered irreversible facial damage, but all carry invisible marks, such as trauma and fear. Support groups were created to unite victims and help them deal with post-trauma, sharing stories and regaining strength. Psychologists specializing in disasters were hired to support grieving families and survivors. The feeling of mourning took over New Zealand, which paid tribute to the victims through public ceremonies and moments of reflection. In Whakaari, a symbolic statue was erected in memory of the victims, with plaques containing the names of those who died. In Sydney, Melbourne, and other Australian cities, similar events brought together relatives and friends to remember those who had passed away. Some families chose to scatter the ashes of their loved ones on the island, despite the visitation ban. The pain is still fresh for many, but time has helped heal some wounds, even if others remain open. International media reported on the case again on symbolic dates, such as the 1st and 2nd anniversaries of the tragedy. Documentaries, reports, and books began to appear, seeking to tell the story with depth and sensitivity. Through these productions, the name of each victim is remembered, and their stories come back to life. For many, the memory of that day serves as an eternal warning about the fragility of life and the power of nature. And despite so much suffering, the desire to move forward and honor those who have left remains strong in the hearts of those involved. The Whakaari tragedy makes us reflect on our position before nature. We are visitors, not owners. We live on a planet full of beauty, but also of forces we don't fully control. The eruption of the volcano was a painful reminder that, no matter how prepared we are, certain events escape our control. This doesn't mean we should live in fear, but rather with awareness and respect for the Earth's forces. It is possible to admire nature without ignoring its risks, and to travel with adventure without giving up safety. New Zealand, a country so accustomed to natural disasters, learned another difficult but necessary lesson. Sustainable and responsible tourism started being discussed more seriously, with proposals for integrated environmental education. Professionals in volcanology are investing in new technologies and prediction methods to prevent future tragedies. The Whakaari case was incorporated as a case study in universities and courses related to geology, risk management, and tourism. Awareness about volcanism and safety in geologically active areas grew exponentially after the event. Many tourists now seek detailed information before embarking on adventures in risk zones. Tourist operators are also more vigilant, with stricter protocols and regular training for guides. The message left behind is one of unity, learning, and resilience. Even in the face of pain, we can build something positive. Honoring the victims of the eruption is remembering that life is a gift, and every step on Earth is a unique opportunity. Life goes on, and with it, the hope that tragedies like this serve as lessons for the future. If you made it this far, you probably felt the impact of this story and the importance of understanding the risks of nature. This video was a tribute to the victims of Whakaari and a warning about the need to respect scientific warnings. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who loves adventures and nature, and subscribe to the channel to receive more stories like this. Leave a comment telling us what you thought of the narrative, whether you've heard of Whakaari before, or if you're interested in other natural disasters. We have many more planned contents about volcanoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, and other incredible and frightening forces of nature. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we publish something new. After all, learning from the past is the best way to ensure a safer and more conscious future. Until the next video, remember, nature is beautiful but also unpredictable. Take care, respect the warnings, and keep exploring the world with wisdom and passion. If you have questions, suggestions, or want to see a specific theme on the channel, write to us. Content about natural disasters, true stories, and memorable events will not be lacking here. Let's continue this journey of discoveries, reflections, and learning together. Thank you for watching and for being part of this story. See you soon. And don't forget, click the subscribe button and leave your like.